This is Jonathan Agatha here for Pro Boxing Fans, joined by Ariel Helwani. We're here at Taylor Serrano, weigh-in just about to get underway. Ariel, how are you finding the whole week?
Oh, this has been great. Great to be at a big event at Madison Square Garden, New York history, boxing, Ireland versus Puerto Rico. Everything is just an amazing concoction. You could feel a buzz in the air. I love everything about it.
Ariel, you're known for covering both UFC and boxing. How do the two sports compare when you get massive fights like this?
Man, they're pretty damn close. I just love both of them. Obviously, there's different elements. Here's the co-promotion. You would never see a co-promotion in MMA. Very rare, unless it's like on the lower level. So I feel like when there's a big event in boxing, it's comparable to a big event in MMA. This actually reminds me a lot of the first women's fight in UFC history back in 2013 when Liz Carmouche fought Ronda Rousey. It feels a lot similar to that. I was there, and I'm honored to be back for this one.
And how does the women's sport compare in boxing and UFC? Do you think they're on par, or is one sort of more advanced than the other?
I would say in the UFC it's way more advanced than boxing. Obviously MMA and UFC is a lot newer than boxing, but I feel like boxing has taken a little longer to welcome the women. You could have cards with 11 fights on it, 10 of them are with men. At the main event, it's 2 women and no one cares. Here, how long has boxing been around? And this is the first one involving 2 women in the main event at Madison Square Garden. So it's taken some time, but it's good to see that they're here.
Ariel, you did the face-off between Jake Paul and Eddie Hearn, as well as Katie Taylor and Serrano. What was the vibe like between Jake and Eddie? Because we did a little media huddle yesterday, and it was getting a bit tense between them. Did that carry on into the face-off?
It was great. I think it'll be up very shortly. It was great. There was a lot of banter between them, a little bit of tension, a little bit of bad blood. I loved it. But then when it came down to it, they were both promoting and they were both doing their thing. So, I think it's been an interesting element because you have like the old guard or the older guard in Eddie and the new guard in Jake coming together for a fight of this magnitude. But yes, to answer your question, tension right off the bat. Like Jake was holding in some stuff, maybe because they did the scrum just before, so it was great.
What is the view amongst UFC fans and UFC fighters of Jake Paul? Because every other week you see a UFC fighter wanting to fight Jake Paul, even though they're under contract. So what impact is he having amongst UFC fighters?
Well, he's having an impact because he's getting UFC fighters paid. Ben Askren got paid a lot, Tyron Woodley got paid a lot, and maybe he's going to fight another one in the near future. So in many respects, Jake Paul feels like more of a UFC story than a boxing story sometimes, because he's always talking about UFC fighters and the business of the UFC. So I think it's been great. He's been shining a light on the lack of pay in MMA and in the UFC in particular. His feud with Dana White has gotten a lot of attention as well. So yeah, it's very much an MMA story, and I don't think it's going away anytime soon. I think some of the fans get annoyed about it, but if you actually listen to what he's talking about, there's a lot of truth there, and I think it's worth paying attention to.
Obviously, we got Canelo-Bivol coming up next week. I believe there's a UFC fight as well. Is that a pay-per-view, and how will the two stack up? Because Canelo went against the UFC fight last time out.
Yeah, it's getting loud.
It's getting really loud.
Yeah. There is a UFC pay-per-view that same night. A couple years ago, when Canelo fought, he went up against an event here at Madison Square Garden and they kept him in the back waiting. He wasn't happy about that. This time they're not going to do that, and rightfully so. The UFC pay-per-view is a really good one, but Canelo is a pound for pound, he's number one, he's a legend, he's a worldwide phenomenon. I think it'll be fine. But the UFC one, I hate when this happens. I hate when they go head-to-head, especially when it's a pay-per-view, but so be it.
Was that announced before the Canelo fight was announced, or is the UFC model so big that they don't care who they go up against?
I think it's very rare. In fact, they just announced an event for July 23rd, and that's the same day as Joshua Usyk, and that's going to be in London as well. So they're kind of their own machine, and they're running events almost every week at this point. They're always going to run into these types of issues.
A couple of quick ones. Conor McGregor, Ariel, you know better than most. When is he back? And do you think the Jake Paul fight will ever happen?
I don't know if it'll ever happen. I think we're inching closer to it, like from a 0% to maybe a 1%. UFC historically comes to Madison Square Garden in November. This could be a date. because I don't think he's ready to come back this summer. Hopefully we see him by the end of the year. If we do, I think it would be November, December.
And just finally, Tyson Fury, we saw him beat Dillian White last week. Francis Ngannou came straight into the ring. How big would a Tyson Fury Francis Ngannou fight be, and how would that play out in your opinion?
It would be gigantic. It would be the first time where you have the true baddest man on the planet title on the line. It would be great for the sport of MMA to have Francis in there with Tyson. I think Francis can hang. Ultimately, would he be the favorite? No. Would it be a long shot for him to win? Yes. But I would love to see him get that payday and get that opportunity. And unlike what we're seeing with Canelo and Usman, we're seeing Fury say, I want this too. And I think that's really important. And Francis's contract is coming up with the UFC. So I think that's really important as well. Honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if this time next year, if the fight already happens or is about to happen. It feels like a real thing, and I can't wait to see how it unfolds.
And how is Canelo-Usman being received in the UFC world?
I don't think that they're going about it the right way. Usman's the best pound-for-pound fighter on the planet, and I think that he needs to treat himself like that. If Canelo doesn't want to give him the time of day, then forget about him. You're the king. Call yourself the man. Say that you are the best in combat sports. Do whatever you have to do. But I don't like when it comes across as like the UFC fighters are tugging on the coattails of the boxers. I don't think that's the way to go about it.
Ariel Helwani, thanks for talking to Pro Boxing fans. Anything you want to add on the main event here, Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano, what we're in for?
No, I'm just very excited to be here, honored to be here, and I can't wait.
Ariel, appreciate it.